Hello and welcome back to Coin Lady channel. Here we go again with the day's crypto news and analysis. I'd want to discuss Ripple and XRP today because they represent the lion's share of the cryptocurrency and financial markets. However, I'd want to begin this video by asking, do many people out there think the XRP lawsuit is just a big show? In a word, yes. When I think about this XRP lawsuit, I immediately think of it as a massive delay tactic. For the bankers to come up with their own answers, I believe the SEC is deliberately trying to prolong the process. I'm not convinced that Ripple is involved, but you're free to disagree with me. I hope to hear from each and every one of you. Post your thoughts in the section below. If you agree that the XRP lawsuit is all for show, please like this video. If not, please still hit the like button to assist the channel out. And I really value your help. Here in the States, a leaked memo suggests that Democrats are joining the SEC in opposing cryptocurrencies. The paper was obtained by a Fox News reporter. Democrats are told to attack Republicans over cryptocurrency and support the SEC's securities classification of digital assets. And do you want to know something crazy? I believe we were just discussing Brad Sherman. Brad Sherman effectively said that the United States has long-standing and comprehensive crypto rules. The only thing missing is registration from these cryptocurrency firms. Well, that settles it. We know that to be untrue, though. Those Democrats cannot be trusted. And if you go into their pasts, you'll find that the liars are all financiers. They back the major banks. The major banks have bought them off. The fact that this is still happening baffles me. In any case, the craziest thing is just what we've seen posted all over the SEC. The SEC isn't in a hurry to figure out how to regulate cryptocurrencies, so it looks like we'll be waiting a while, Justin. At first, we were like, okay, we get that will take some time. Actually, John Eden mentioned the year 2025, that's in around 2 years' time, give or take a year and a half. In light of the context, that's actually not that bad. I've seen some people who look maybe 10 to 20 years older than they actually are. That's exactly right. 10 to 20 years. Have no fear. We'll return to that topic in a moment. However, we recognize that establishing uniform crypto regulations could take a long time. Coinbase, a major cryptocurrency exchange, recently fired back at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, by filing a petition seeking clarification on crypto rules. However, Coinbase revealed that regulator feedback was not positive for the Bitcoin sector. And in a moment, I'll bring that over to you. However, we do not believe that the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, is required by either the securities laws or the Administrative Procedure Act to establish the sweeping new regulations surrounding digital assets that Coinbase has asked. Here we notice that Coinbase's Paul Grewal tweeted his opinion on the matter. He said it could be years before the SEC issues guidelines for the Bitcoin industry. To add insult to injury, he called the SEC statement a resounding maybe to show how dissatisfied he was with it. He did, however, concede that the SEC's perspective on how it intends to build laws for the Bitcoin business was first explicitly expressed in this document. In this way, the SEC did confirm that it plans to keep relying on rule-free enforcement actions for the foreseeable future. But have no fear, for these measures of enforcement may help shape future rulemaking. So it looks like the SEC will keep doing what they do best, which is nothing, and keep coming after cryptocurrencies. Coinbase was also the target of criticism from the Securities and Exchange Commission. The filing also stated that according to Coinbase's own submissions, it is unnecessary to take into account the numerous pathways it suggests. The process of saying sorry is convoluted and time-consuming. However, Coinbase only submitted its regulatory petition around 10 months ago, made amendments to the petition about 3 months ago, and asked for further amendments to the record just recently. Please describe what you find below. As a whole, the SEC's statement confirms Coinbase's long-held fear that the sector lacks clarity on what the SEC may perceive to be within or outside of its jurisdiction at any one time, and that the SEC is likely to continue changing its mind along the way. We appreciate the court's thoughtful consideration and look forward to submitting our formal response next week. And, lots of folks did put up a resistance against this. First, we know that Gary Gensler was sacked because of our Crypto One mindset. I agree wholeheartedly, and we can now see that the SEC government has filed its response to Coinbase's lawsuit on the agency's interpretation of SEC statutes and how they relate to digital assets as securities. An application for a restraining order against Coinbase. Even though we appreciate that Coinbase would like to have its preferred policy changes implemented without further delay, we cannot grant Coinbase extraordinary relief by mandating that the Commission take action on a rulemaking petition that has been pending for well under a year. And we saw that as well. Someone who is a man of law or who has met a man of law. Sorry. In his reply to Coinbase's legal action, he reacts with a breaking statement. The SEC's strategy of delay is, unfortunately, nothing new. Keep in mind the potential for years of waiting, as they have already expressed their lack of urgency. What we've witnessed recently will also come as a surprise to you. When I first read it, I was taken aback. Well, we did notice, and here's what you need to know. Coinbase wants the court to order the SEC to simply say whether or not it will engage in rulemaking with respect to digital assets, as requested by Coinbase. The SEC is not providing such information. Well, not just yet. The SEC claims, among other things, that it has not yet determined whether to approve Coinbase's request for new regulations. Second, it can take as long as it likes to decide whether or not to grant the petition. Number 3. The SEC plans to keep litigating cryptocurrency firms despite the lack of new regulations, pointing to precedents in which courts have refused petitioners' requests for relief after government agencies took years to respond. The SEC further contends that the current pace of the Coinbase petition is appropriate for government operations. The SEC may be able to get away with this delay technique because the long-awaited Ripple ruling is still very much in the spotlight. Indeed, the Ripple choice is of the utmost significance. But the question is, how long will that take to be delayed? When can we expect that to happen? Right. For the simple reason that 2.5 years have passed. Time has passed dramatically. 2.5 years is a long period in this industry. Technically speaking, if you are looking at it from simply a zoomed-out perspective. Someone once remarked that the time spent in the domain of cryptography is equivalent to 7 years in the actual world. Indeed, this is the case. The pace of this market is unprecedented. As we see this go on, we realize how crucial it is. As time goes on, its significance to the market as a whole grows. However, this raises issues such as how patient the SEC will be. The range is roughly 10-20 years. 1 in 5 is actually visible over here. Please, the American legislature. Let's be clear, the SEC's current regulatory pace poses a serious threat to the United States and is a source of national disgrace. Gensler, the chairperson, look at how crazy this is. Explains why rule changes that take 10-20 years are reasonable based on previous situations. In this case, the agency declined to interfere despite the fact that it would take another decade to issue a regulation and another decade after that to accomplish the role's statutory aim. This is completely ridiculous. 10 to 20 years. You'd be wrong if you assumed that 2.5 years was a long time. Yeah. How do you feel about staying here for the next 10 to 20 years? Meanwhile, American invention is being sabotaged. Safety concerns have been used as a club by regulators to crush neobanks, payment applications, non-bank money lenders, and digital asset providers. Meanwhile, customer deposits are helping to bring down regulated banks. It's understandable that it takes time to learn about and fully grasp the ramifications of brand new technological developments. That's why it took time for other US regulators to catch up with the advent of cryptocurrency in 2010. However, respond? They work both domestically and internationally. For all agencies except the SEC, FinCEN, 2013, the IRS, 2014, the FEC, 2014, the EBA, 2014, the GAO, 2014, and the CFTC, 2015, that guidance was issued nearly a decade ago. Then down here, while other departments sorted out where they stand, Gensler refused to offer any sort of direction. For formal rulemaking on transactions involving digital assets, the SEC would like another decade. That's okay, but you can count on dealing in yuan rather than dollars for those transactions. In that light, I wonder how much longer they're willing to drag out the Ripple case. Right. Because, after 2.5 years, we have a very good 10-20 range. For example, I seriously doubt that we have even 10 to 20 years to go. The rate at which new ideas are spreading beyond the United States is astonishing, and it's only going to accelerate from here. But I'm on the side of those who are pointing out these issues, such as the fact that a regulator whose job it is to safeguard investors shouldn't make them wait 10 to 20 years to participate in a fantastic business and help it flourish in the United States. It's not just the projects that are getting slammed, you know. It's also in the field of cryptography. The scope of the crypto sector in terms of available jobs is often underestimated. One way of looking at the economic impact of digital assets and cryptocurrency is as the creation of anything from 100,000 to 500,000 jobs. It's a serious issue. In the United States, the SEC poses a significant threat. Coinbase did hear back from Jeremy Hogan. The purpose of Coinbase's writ was never to determine whether or not the SEC will regulate cryptocurrencies fairly. To put it bluntly, no. Coinbase launched this offensive to counter an SEC lawsuit that was expected to be filed this summer. Clearly, the work of a trial lawyer has little to do with the law. You use the law, but your goal is to paint your client in the best possible light and the other side in the worst possible light. The decent person will always win in court. Coinbase aimed for just that. And I believe it did get some useful materials. In my opinion, Coinbase is currently in a very strong position, both from the perspective of the SEC and from within the company itself. However, I'm unsure of the SEC's future actions. We can assume at this point that the SEC will not provide solutions to their issues. In fact, I've glanced at this and wondered, how is Gary Gensler still the chair? On a daily basis. How is it that the SEC is still making an effort? What gives Congress cause to utterly skewer them in a public hearing? The SEC's and Gary Gensler's entire credibility has been called into doubt. However, did you know this? Nothing is done. As a result, I find myself wondering, what the hell is going to happen here? Is the Securities and Exchange Commission ever going to explain their policies and procedures? Unlikely, in my opinion. Unlikely, in my opinion. We see so much corruption and so many problems, just like we see them in every other significant agency in this nation and everywhere else in the world. Moreover, did you know what? It leads nowhere. Looking at the SEC, I believe they will keep doing what they are good at, which is assaulting the entire industry while doing nothing. It will continue with their banking pals like Brad Sherman and, even Jamie Dimon. Right, Jamie Dimon, and I discussed it. Like the things that I'm seeing around this space and even outside of this space is just insane to me. He was calling on a lot of issues within crypto while saying, that we need to make sure that we go after anyone tweeting about banks and things like that. Bankers now appear to be in command. Observably, authorities have cozy relationships with bankers and are likely being bribed by them to crack down on cryptocurrencies. The area is completely chaotic at the moment. In addition, the SEC reduced the $22 million fine originally levied on the library to a $111,000 fine. But the craziest part of this is how badly the library was treated. We were keeping an eye on this case even before the Ripple case came out because of the similarities between the two. We can also see that the SEC approved of fining Startup Library $22 million, plus blood, sweat, and tears, for its efforts to comply. It is risky to start a business in the United States right now. The fine was decreased to $111,000, which is better but still unacceptable. We did get some feedback from the library, with several patrons expressing surprise that the SEC had abandoned its demand for $22 million in disgorgement. The library's punishments were marginally less severe, like being relieved to be choked by only one hand instead of two. The SEC's decision not to pursue disgorgement against the library can be interpreted as motivated solely by the agency's own self-interest. The SEC anticipated defeat and sought to stave off a potentially damaging precedent. The SEC has shown no signs of tempering its antipathy toward blockchain technology. As the most popular decentralized social platform, we can only hope that the SEC's decision to drop disgorgement is an indication that they are now ready to take their scalp and move on. As long as Odyssey is not hounded and mistreated by the US government, we see a promising future for the project. And, I've looked into why the SEC has gone after most of these companies, and it looks like a lot of it is centered out on decentralization, so I think that's something to keep in mind as we examine what's going on. It's very funny that they're against the growth of decentralization in the United States. Because, if you will, this is the land of the free. To be honest, I don't think that's what they're after. They probably don't want you to use DeFi apps that let you make 20% or more on your money. It's all about power and control. They want you using banks and banking services run by bankers they control. Nothing more than that. Having power is essential. Both power and greed play major roles. They're aware that there's a lot of money to be made in the cryptocurrency market. And even with Ripple's successes, the company was still up against a formidable foe. Do you think I'll refer to them as the mafia? The banking system is essentially run by a mafia. When we consider the SEC, we realize that the SEC serves as their army. They're taking on their conflicts on their behalf. They are bullying their rivals. When I consider all the companies they could have targeted, I realize that Ripple was just one of them. What the bankers were doing was also being contested. And that really rubbed them the wrong way because it's game over once you start messing with their food source. And you already know that Ripple was creating widespread havoc in their food web. And that's why they were sent to the designated library. They were, doing this seriously groundbreaking decentralized publishing that was seriously threatening to a sizable industry. As we examine several of the targeted businesses, we are left wondering, why are these businesses being singled out specifically? Because if you step back and give it some thought, you'll realize why they're being singled out. There is no way you don't already know the solution. Indeed, this is a fascinating topic. Do you seriously believe that this is all an act? I mean, what do you believe is going on right now? Simply said, I find it quite strange. To me, a time span of 10 to 20 years is absurd. Finally, I wish you all a good time watching this film. Since I provide this stuff for free, if you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and turn on those notifications. See you later, bye.